Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV and a game of interplanetary I Spy going on here. Now today we're going back over an anomaly, or anomalous rock, or whatever you want to call it, that was published by lots of people fairly recently, probably a few weeks back now. And here it is, and it's the one that's sitting on the edge of a little kind of plinth here. There's also this rather strange outcrop of rock here at the top, which looks very odd indeed. Now, there's been a bit of pontification about this because the original image we were given, if I show you this, this was brought to my attention by Martine Graney, who's written a very interesting comment about this image posted by Neville Thompson. Now, this is from the ChemCam on the Curiosity Rover, and there's a high resolution image and close-up of the anomalous rock. Okay? A very good quality image, much better than what we normally get from the mass cam. Now the mass cam image is this one here. I've just showed you. This is the JPL website. Okay. Now the original image that everyone published was more like this. Okay, here it is. Here's a clip that Martine's taken, and she's written a very good comment about this and how it doesn't relate at all in many ways, this image to this image. There are similarities. Of course, this is a high resolution image and this is a very low resolution image and much further away, i.e. the camera hasn't zoomed in very far. Now I'll demonstrate this in a second. This is a little bit complex to explain. I'll try and keep this fairly short if I can. Here is the ChemCam image from the ChemCam. You can get it here, you can get it on Flickr. There'll be links to all these below as usual in the description. And here's the Gigapan, and you'll also find it up here. Okay, now this is a weird one because a lot of channels out there were publishing stories about this image initially, as I did, which is this one called "Small Statuette Figure on Mars. Is it a bottle?" Now it does look to me like a bottle in this image. I'll play this through a little bit just to refresh our memories about what this actually looks like and how it relates to the surroundings. Okay, here it is. Now, as you can see, it's quite a narrow object at the top, and it has a semi-transparent part to it here. And even in the raw image, which is there, you can actually see what looks like a kind of C shape. Okay, so concentrate on that C shape there. Okay, I'm just going to get closer. Okay, and a few very basic enhancements. Now you can see that C shape appearing a lot more clearly. Okay, now I haven't put that in the image. That's there. All I've done is bring it out by using contrast. Okay, but you can quite clearly see. Now I appreciate this is an out of focus image because the camera isn't focused on it, and it's a lot further away. So we got a blurry kind of almost double image with a kind of halo around it, which is caused by the fact that it's not in focus. But you can clearly see what looks like a transparent looking ball-like structure on top with a C shape here, a kind of a C shape, and a sort of fairly pronounced L shape here with a sort of line sticking up here. Now I appreciate a lot of that is down to the fact that it's a JPEG, and the JPEG's a downgraded version of the original image. Okay, so bear that in mind. But as you can see, here's the raw clip that Martine's taken, or the clip that she's taken, and you can see that C shape quite clearly as well. So she's had the same results as me on this, which means that we're not making it up. I mean, we've done this independently at different times and come to the same conclusion, or very similar conclusion, about this object that looks intelligent. Okay, now when you see it in the ChemCam close-up, which is a high resolution ping image, okay, you can see that that C shape is just not there at all. It's completely gone, and this bears little relation to the original photograph that we saw from earlier. Okay, there it is there, and you can zoom in and out with this. I'll show you it on here. I think it's right over this side. This is the Gigapan of the area done by Neville Thompson, another fine Gigapan, and you have to scroll all the way to the right of the image, and here we are. Just to get it in context with the rest of the surroundings, you have the object here. Now this is from the more recent image, which I first showed you up here. Okay, 1419, I think it's from that. Okay, let's go back to there. So it's 1421. So actually, this is taken a couple of days later, but it's the same spot, obviously. And you can see it in context here. Now, even if this isn't a bottle or some kind of statuette or whatever, lots of different people have called it different things, you know, whatever it may be, one has to ask, one really does have to ask why this has changed so much, and what on earth would a rock balancing on the edge of a plinth-like structure here still be doing stood up in the first place? Even if it's not a bottle, even if it's not a statuette, what is holding this thing up? Why hasn't it toppled over? Why hasn't the wind blown this over? It's a narrow object, and it seems to be teetering right on the edge of this little ledge here, which in itself is anomalous, regardless of what you think the object is. Why is it still stood there like something that's been placed there deliberately? Why does it look like that? Because all the other strata in the area, most of it all seems to be kind of jagged and sort of broken and fallen down, and the strata, it sort of goes this way and is cracked from weathering here, and but this thing on the end just doesn't seem to match, and it may be evidence of image tampering by NASA, and they do tamper the images. We know they do. In fact, I have proof of it right here in this image, which I did about a year or two ago. About a year ago, 2015, and we have this. It's called NASA Fake Sand and Hides Mars Images, Martian Pyramid Construction, blah blah blah. Okay, so it's called NASA Fake Sand, and here we have a very interesting object here, which is blatantly being covered up here with fake sand, and you can actually see some of the structure of this rock here through the sand here, where they've done a very poor amateurish job of trying to cover up the edge, the bottom edge of this object, which is probably very straight and is probably a cut block of some sort, which is heavily weathered, but nonetheless is probably an intelligent object. You can see very clearly here that they haven't even bothered to actually carefully blend the sand together to make it look natural. This is natural sand here. You can see the grain in the sand, and then suddenly it's all been smudged and smoothed over, and it's been copy and pasted probably from another part of the image over this thing here to cover it up. So we do know they fake sand, and we do know they manipulate the images. We do know they remove information, but could they be actually adding information into the images also? I'll show you the image up here. I've got, this is the ping, this is from the ChemCam, and it's a high quality image, but it's very dark, and there's no sign of that C-shaped structure here. I appreciate the shadows are different here, but you should still see a C-shaped structure here, even though the shadow is from the other side. Okay, here is a clip from the JPEG, which is here. Here's the JPEG. Absolutely no sign of that C shape there. It's just not there. So where did that C shape come from? This is a very slightly different angle, of course, because the rover has now moved further around to the right of this object and is seeing it from a slightly different perspective, but not much. It hasn't moved very far, probably only a few meters, if anything. And here it is. I've taken a clip of that and enhanced it just to show the detail. Now, this bears little or no resemblance at all to the image we first had in this video, which is the small statuette video. I'll play that through a little bit more. There's absolutely no resemblance to it at all. And you can see in the negative image here that you can see that C shape and what looks like a very different object on top of it, like a lid or a stopper or something like that. Is this evidence that NASA are deliberately manipulating these images? The problem is that the high resolution version of it, the ChemCam one here, which we have here, and I also have here, this has been brightened up, by the way. Neville T's done a good job with that. He's really brought out the detail in it. This one is as it comes from the website, okay? And it hasn't been brightened up. Let's brighten that up considerably. Let's go up about plus 25 to get it nice and bright so you can actually see a bit better. Okay, there's absolutely no sign of the structures that we saw in the original further back image. Now, is that because of the fact it's a compressed JPEG and there's been manipulated? It certainly has been manipulated. It's had much of the detail removed, and in the first place was a poor quality out of focus image. Now, out of focus images, especially from a distant object, can be very deceptive. So it may well just be the fact that it's a low quality image in the first place, whereas this one is a lot higher quality. This is the ping. This is taken from the more recent, closer image here, this one. And as you can see, there's a lot more detail to be seen. And it does kind of match, it matches up with the ping, which says to me that the image hasn't been. Because they would have to manipulate at least 2 sets of images, including the original Mastcam image like this, and the ping image. Now, that would be quite difficult to match up. So I don't know. But we do know that they manipulate images, because I and many other researchers have shown that in previous videos, as I touched on earlier. So, answers on the postcard as usual, guys. I'm not really sure what to make of this. I'll put clips of all these in at the end and do some nice image comparisons for you and see where the discrepancies may have come from. Okay? So, credit to Martine here for bringing my attention to this. An interesting one. This does go to show that the quality of the image is absolutely paramount, and also the fact that distant objects in low quality images often look very, very different from what they actually really look like when you get a bit closer. But it may well be evidence of image manipulation by NASA. We know they do it, as it clearly shows here. So they may be texturing some of these so-called rocks to look like rocks. They're obviously cutting and pasting and copying and pasting sand over objects, and this has been shown over many years in some of these NASA images of Mars. So, answers on the postcard as usual. Thanks for watching, everybody. Clips coming up now. Compare and contrast. I'll see you soon.